Hello, this is Jeff Ryle from G4 Gematic Resources. We're going to do another info to know video in the G4 Foresight series. And today we're going to go over GS18 Base using point-to-point, using a new feature in version 9 NTRIP. Okay. Before we get started, let's introduce the team from G4 Houston. It's myself, John O'Rourke, does technical support and sales for Geomatics and also HCSI and scanning. Ronald heads up the service department, so can service all your Geomatic survey gear. Stacy's our office manager, orders CCP, SmartNets, SIM cards, and helps with Ronald with scheduling service. And Logan and Ray Acosta work in the construction division with Icon series and also supplies. And of course, Bruno, most important member of our team, is in charge of the meet and greet department. So once again, here's our address. If you're in the Houston area, stop on by. And here's just all our information here. So once again, if you're in the Southeast Texas area, you need help with your surveying needs, please feel free to reach out to our team. Also, G4 handles Dallas, Oklahoma, Austin, San Antonio. Just reach out to us in those areas. We can refer you to the reps that handle those regions. Okay. And once again, Ray has a new YouTube channel called Ray World Leveling Up, and goes over some icons he just started. So have a look at that too, some good resources there. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is the GS18 is going to be a base station. It's got a 4G internal modem. And what's really important is we work with DAC and we can generate a static IP SIM card. It's important to have a static IP because it's a set IP. And what happens when we set it up, when we enter an APN, and that gets us on the internet. So since we're in Houston, we're in the south area. So here's a rough map, and the APN will be right here. So if you move around and do point-to-point NTRIP and you're all over the country, it's important that you use the proper APN depending on where you're at. So if you're up here near Chicago, just go through this video and then update that APN so your base station can get on the internet. So here's the APNs listed here. It's really, really important. And once again, these are Verizon, so we have to have Verizon cell phone coverage at our base station location for this to work. So once again, when we get the SIM card, it'll be a micro SIM card. We'll put the contacts up, text to the right, slide it in the GS18. And this open spot down here is an SD card. It's going to record static data. Okay, so that just shows you how to put it in. Very simple. And once it's in, just leave it in there. And what's really important is remember it requires a GAT27 antenna to get on the internet. So once again, the GAT antenna will plug in. So this little icon here is like a 4G icon. That's where it plugs in. If you don't have this GAT27, you have a hard time getting on the internet, and the rest of this won't matter. So we'll stress this. It's a very simple error that can be made by not plugging that in. Okay. So once again, this is using version 9. The NTRIP is a new feature with version 9. So the GS18, once again, the base station can be a GS18, GS18T with tilt, or GS18I. We have the GAT27, put the static SIM card in, and have version 9 loaded. In this video, I'm going to use the CS20 with version 9. There's a way to shell out using the web server, but we'll show you how to set up using the CS20 with version 9. Once again, we'll be sending NTRIP data out. We'd have mobile rovers dialed in. And the other unique thing is a lot of guys have drones that require NTRIP, and that's where this NTRIP feature really comes in handy on version 9. So what's really important is, once again, if you're not on version 9, this will not work. Okay, just some basic features and benefits. Point-to-point, once again, the GS18 base station has a static IP SIM card in the 4G internal modem. We want it to track all 4 satellites. The rover is only as good as the base, so it's going to track all 4 constellations and all the L5 and all BOC. And this can store static data as well. If you want to put an SD card or even to the internal memory. And there is a 1-watt radio, so if you're in an area where you lose cell phone coverage, your regular rovers can revert back to using the 1-watt radio or an external 35 watts. So a lot of versatility with the GS18. In this case, we're going to be focusing on the internet and point-to-point. Okay. And once again, if you are running a rover, the same CS20 or CT180 can set the base up and run with the rover. Okay, so on the rover side, unique features, we can have up to 10 rovers, and it can be a combination of RTK rovers and drones working off that base station using NTRIP. It's going to improve performance near trees with a shorter baseline and all the constellations, and improved accuracy. You might see 500s or better because of the shorter baseline. And once again, multiple rovers, even non-Leica rovers, can work off that base station. And once again, your drone can do NTRIP as well. And this will help push the boundary, improve your performance, okay, for accuracy, performance, and getting shots where we couldn't get before. And this could really help to fill in the gaps. So if you were like 20 miles or more away from a SmartNet base station, slapping your own base up will improve your productivity and accuracy. And once again, if there's areas where there's just no SmartNet base station, this is an ideal solution. Okay, we have a CS20 and it's turned on. And right now we're going to hit the start button. And under Workstyle, I got a Workstyle set up for the base and the rover. So got one set point-to-point base version 9, hit next. And the first, if we tab over to settings, we're going to turn off all the connections here. So there's no conflict between the base and the rover. So we go over to settings, connections, all the connections, and you can see the RTK rovers turned off. The GS internet is turned off on the second tab. And then we page back over to the first tab, CS connections, CS internet. There was a SIM card there. We'd have that turned off just because we want everything focused on the base and no conflict with the if there's a SIM card already in the CS20. Okay. And you'll see here we have the switch to base icon right here. So we'll set that up to make sure it's visible. So we'll go back to settings, customization, app visibility, and you can see that the switch to base is the line's unchecked. And if that was further down, I could highlight that and move it up because I want it very accessible. So once again, when that's turned on, it's right here. It's now accessible. So we got base setup and settings. So we'll go into settings, and the first thing to do is we can go to connections, and when I first set up all Bluetooth and the Bluetooth light comes on, we'll start tracking satellites. Okay, so we'll hit connections, connect GS base. Now we'll go to all other connections. Okay, and under all the connections, it will show us up here that we're now Bluetooth. Okay, and we're going to set the GS internet and the base RTK one. So the GS internet is where we're going to set it up to point towards the SIM card in the GS modem, and that's where we type in the APN. And the base RTK1 will dictate where we send data out and what type of data we're going to send out, okay, over the NTRIP settings, okay. So once again, we'll go down to GS internet, hit F3 edit, and once again, we now select the GS modem, okay. And right down here, we created a new device called internal 4G. Okay, so once again, if I came in here, typically we'd have a default setting for criterion PLS. If that's being used by another device, sometimes you get an error message, we'll see that. If I highlight that and hit F2 new, I created this new device called one internal 4G. Okay, so once again, if you select that and it comes up and says, hey, this device is already being used, once again, we hit F2, create that new name, store it. Now we can select it. Okay, and now under the GS internet, it's checked, GS modem, and that device is now checked. Okay, so once again, once that is set up and that's highlighted, F4 control right down here will then show us where the APN is. So that's where we got to type the APN for where we're working. So now we're in the south area. So we'll hit F4 control, and there is our APN so01.vzw static. And that should get us on the internet. Okay. So once again, when we're on the internet, the @ sign up here, there's no triangle. If there's a solid triangle, it means we're not on the internet. And so that now means we're on the internet for the GAT27. So once what we can do is we're going to stop this just for a second. Once again, we set up the GS internet, And what we'll do is I'll come down here.
No triangle.
And the second option is Base RTK1. And right now we're going to set it up. If you're using NTRIP, one option is you can uncheck this and just not send any data out over the Base RTK1. That'll all be done through the NTRIP. So I've done it both ways. So once again, in this video, we have everything enabled. If you see any issues, just uncheck this. Don't send any data out. We'll do it all via NTRIP. But let me just go through and show you how to set this up as an option. And once again, if you see any conflict, just uncheck that and leave it blank, and we'll do it via the NTRIP.
The next setting is the RTK1. Hit F3 edit, check the box. We're going to connect stream over GS Internet number 1, and we're going to use RTCN3 MSN. The MSN will compact the data, okay? And so we'll select those two settings there, and then we'll hit OK. And if we page over on the second tab is data rates, we can change the message type from extended to compact, just make it more efficient. Just a good habit to get into. Okay, so once again, we've now set the GS Internet for the SIM card, and this base RTK1 is how we're going to send our data out. When this is highlighted green, I can now hit Control to see the IP. So if we go down and hit Control, we're going to say server. That's the IP of the SIM card. We can jot that down. We'll need that for the drone and the rovers. Okay. We're going to change that port number on the NTRIP settings, but right here, I just want to take a quick look at the IP address on that SIM card. Okay. Once again, we're on the internet with the @ sign. There's no triangle there. And once again, the base station, the big circle up there, our CQs are 15, 20 feet. And then we'll hit OK. All right. So that's good. So under base setup, this will allow us to set up over a known point or over any point. And we can also come back in here if we want to set up record static data. So if you had an SD card, or you can actually store the internal memory, we can come in here and set this up to record static data. I'm going to turn this off right now. We're doing strictly RTK. We're set up on a known point. Okay, those are basically the settings for setting the base station. I'll then hit function and then hit the Windows, and we'll come up to the web server, and this is where we're going to go in and set the NTRIP settings up here.
Okay, it's just some tips for setting the GS18 base up. Some guys will set an RTK point like we did in here, and we have to set up on a survey rod, a bipod, or you can use a tripod. If it's a set point, then you can select it. If you hit the any point, it'll grab a position autonomous, plus or minus 10, 15 feet, and you can also store static data and send it to Opus later on. Okay. We always strongly recommend when you set a base station up, set a checkpoint like 50, 60 feet away. That way, every day you check into it, make sure everything's okay, and try to set up your base point in a wide open area so you don't have any obstructions. And once again, we're using Verizon, so we need to have internet connectivity, and also ensure you have the GAT27, that antenna plugged in. Okay, and if you do park your survey vehicle, just park it like 50 feet away so you don't have any multipath. Okay. All right, so now we'll go over how to set up on this known points. In this example, we set a point from the network a long distance away. We'll set the base up on this point. We're going to check shot nearby.
Okay, so once again, we're now going to go to base setup. This is where we pick the point that we're going to set up on. Okay, so we hit base setup. We have different options here: over known point, over last point, over any point. Any point will grab a position plus or minus 10, 15 feet. In this case, we have known control points we set up. So it's a good idea to put a check shot nearby and with that known point. In this case, we're set up on GS18 pole, 5.9 feet. Got a tripod, type in that height. And in this case, we're going to pick point number 4. This is the point that we uploaded. And then once again, when that's selected, we'll start pushing data out. So what we want to do is get the base station set up, and then once the position's in there, we can then hit the function windows and then send our data via NTRIP to our rover. Okay. So when we get out of there, switch to rover, go back into the rover mode, and hit the function windows to go to set the NTRIP settings.
All right, so once again, we did in the previous video, but if you have a CS20, see this function button and the little green icon up here for Windows. If you hit those two at the same time, it'll have Captivate run in the background. It'll show us out to Windows. And then once again, this little icon here, the web server, it's hard to read Bluetooth. That's what we're going to double click to access the NTRIP settings. So once again, we have to do this every time we set the base up. So if you turn it off, come back the next day, we've got to come in here and redo the NTRIP each time. Okay. All right, so once again, what we did is we went to the Windows, went to the web server, and what will come up, it'll pull up this little icon here. And what we were going to do is hit the instrument key, and on the top line, it says operation mode. We'll click on there. And if we zoom in, you'll see there's information with the base station. So this shows the coordinates of the base station. It should pull it in from the base that we just set up in Captivate. But you can come in here and change from geodetic to grid and manually type in the value of the base station. Okay, so there's an option to do that there. This is using a video from Switzerland, so you can see the position here is northern and eastern, and that's what they typed in. Okay, so once again, we'll scroll down, click that little button, NTRIP at the bottom. It'll open it up, activate NTRIP caster, and it's going to show us the IP address that we got from the SIM card. So we saw that before in Captivate, but it shows us it right here. Once again, we want to type in port 2101, and then we're going to take a look at the RTK data format. Okay, and we'll scroll down, and in this case, when set RTCM MSN, it compacts it every 1 second. Then the mount point, we'll type in the mount point, and this defines it. And this is the mount point name that we'll pick on the rover. So in this case, they're typing in reference 01. Okay, and then they'll type in the client username and password. Okay, and once again at the end, we'll hit that little save button at the bottom, and these settings will be saved. So it'll remember this. You don't have to type it in every time, but we got to set it up every time and activate it. Okay, so once again, if we come in here and hit that little button to open it up, these settings should stick. And what's going to happen is at the top, you'll see this little green says NTRIP has been enabled. And that means it should be sending NTRIP data out right now. Okay, so that's just a quick overview on how to set the NTRIP up. Okay, so once again, we now move towards the rover. With the shorter baseline, GNSS, we should have improved performance next to trees, tougher environments, and increased accuracy. We did some testing. This is just in the back next to some trees, has some great repeatability. And let's take a look now at the rover. So in this case, once again, we take that information that we typed in, type it into the rover. In my example, the rover here is slightly different. But once again, I'll show you how to enter that data in.
Okay, so what I did, we're now in rover mode. I hit the star button, went to number 1 Workstyle, and I switched to point-to-point rover and hit next. And the base should be pumping data out, and our CQs are high. Let's take a look at the our quick settings here. So we'll go down to settings. So I'll click down here and go to connections. And once again, we'll do GS connection wizard to Bluetooth. So we're Bluetoothed up. It's got the Bluetooth light. Under all other settings, under the first tab, CS connections, we'll go to CS Internet. Hit Edit. And in this case, we'll uncheck the box, use the CS modem, and we'll hit OK. And if I hit Control, we're now using the DAC card. Okay? And you can see up there, just connected to the Internet, and then have a bar strength because we're actually using this, the CS Internet. I'm connected using WLAN. If I page to GS connections, top rows RTK Rover, hit Edit, and check the box is CS Internet. Data type is RTCM version 3. RTK Base is automatic, and there's no network. Now if we hit Control, that's where we typed in our new, so I can hit New. If I hit Edit, I call it P2P NTRIP, and there's the IP we got from the base station settings, port 2101, page over, and we said use account, and we typed in the username password that we typed into the base to match that up. So hit Store and hit OK. And see the mount point? See it's GS18 Base. So if I hit the source, F4, I'll pick that, and then we'll hit OK. Now it should be set up to work with the to dial into the base station. So right now we're not dialed in, we're on the internet. So once again, if I click on here, internet status, it's connected. If we page over, and right now we're using AT&T. So this DAC card can hop on AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile. So what we'll do now, I've got F11 to dial in. If I click up here, start streaming data. Because the base is hidden, send an NTRIP out, and now start pumping data, and now it should fix. We're in this job here. I got a check shot that we've got the rover set up on. Is now fixed. Let's go to stake points. It'll prompt us for that job, and we're on check shot number 4. And let's see how well we agree. So once again, the horizontals within, under 100th, really impressive, and the verticals 1 to 2 hundredths or better. Okay, so that's really impressive. It shows that once again, you can use a drone or rovers using your own NTRIP. If you escape back out, hit the star key. Once again, quality control. We have current position. If I page over to baseline, this then shows me how far we are from the base station. So right now, check shot's 23 feet away. And once again, like we said earlier, we have great CQs, 1Ds vertical, 2Ds horizontal. And when we're staking that point out, let's go take a look at it again. Look how tight it is, like thousandths of a foot. Okay, so that's a quick overview on how to dial in and use NTRIP.
All right, well, thanks for watching. Hope this made sense. This last section was just setting up the rover, typing in the NTRIP settings, and receiving RTK corrections. We used a rover to illustrate it, but once again, you can use a drone to access that as well. Okay, so I hope you found that beneficial. Thanks again for paying attention, and we appreciate your patronage.